Last year, the Boston Red Sox got to within 2 games of the World Series. What are their expectations in 2022? And with the season just about halfway gone, are they going to the playoffs again? Probably. Should Red Sox fans expect anything to happen? Who knows? I know who knows. Lauren Campbell knows from Locked On Red Sox. We're doing a Locked On MLB, Locked On Red Sox crossover. Let's start it up. And hello, baseball fans, and welcome to the Locked On MLB, Locked On Red Sox crossover. These are the podcasts. One covers all of Major League Baseball, and the other covers the Boston Red Sox all year long as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Today's episode is being dropped on the 7th day of July 2022. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. I'm a former television producer. I got an Emmy nomination for my trouble as a television producer. You've seen me on Curse of the Bambino and Reverse the Curse of the Bambino on HBO Sports. I've been podcasting since people said, what the heck is a podcast? And I've appeared in a bunch of other publications and other things like that. My guest is Lauren Campbell, who I've known for a very long time. In fact, we appeared on each other's podcasts before the Locked On Podcast Network swallowed us both up. Lauren Campbell, the host of Locked On Red Sox. Tell people a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I host the Locked On Red Sox podcast alongside my co-host Jake Monday through Friday. I've been podcasting now probably about 10 years, all Red Sox, Bruins, sports related. And I've been in the Boston media scene for 7 years, and I'm still here. So still standing, No gray hairs, messy hair. But
yes, we both have messy hair today.
It's all on my head still. So
there you
happy
go.
about that. Currently at Nesson, love it, 4.5-ish years. But covering all things Red Sox and Bruins there.
And you can follow this podcast at Locked On MLB Pod, same handle for Instagram. My personal one right there, if you're watching on the YouTubes, I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Lauren, where can people follow you?
Lauren, 3 Laws, Lauren with 4 R's on Twitter, and Locked On Red Sox on Twitter at LO_Red Sox. I don't know if we have an Instagram. If we do, we don't use it. So just follow us on Twitter. We're fun there.
I know. I sometimes forget some of the accounts that we have. I go, oh, yeah, I'm on Instagram. All right. Lauren and I have known each other, at least in the podcasting world, since I'm guessing 2024, 2025. I appeared on a previous podcast that you were one of the hosts on. And that was the episode where you asked me, what's going on? Why are the Red Sox not as great as they were in 2013? And I reminded you that the Red Sox won the World Series in a rebuilding year. That 2013 team was a glorious Venn diagram of happiness that was kind of a fluke, but they had a plan. They said they were going to go forward and do a rebuild. And guess what? They won a World Series a couple years after that. And here we are. The Red Sox, with one exception, since the collapse of 2011, the Red Sox, so basically a decade worth of seasons, the Red Sox, with one exception, have been either a last-place team or in the playoffs. And that one exception was 2019, where they were just merely mediocre. For a while, when this season began, I thought, well, this is going to be one of the bad years. And then May turned around, starting in mid-May. And since then, the Red Sox have been playing at an elite level. Now, full disclosure, we're recording this during the Rays-Red Sox game, so we don't know the outcome of what's going on in the game. You all do. But the fact of the matter is the Red Sox are a strong playoff contender right now. They really look like a solid wildcard team. Tell me what you think about this team and how they're constructed and what your real expectations are going forward.
Well, they're much better than they were in April in the first week or so of May. And I think this is exactly who Red Sox fans expected them to be halfway through the season. So I'm glad to see the turnaround, and I'm glad to see the younger kids, the Worcester kids, kind of come into form and step up when they needed to, whether that was in Toronto, whether that was in place of injuries. And they're giving Alex Cora tough decisions to make when the team becomes fully healthy at some point again. But going forward, I think we're going to see the same kind of team. It would be lovely if they could win a series against an AL East team, which maybe by the time this drops, they will have done that. But with a series against the Yankees coming up and a stretch of AL East opponents, they need to get that done because you don't win series in the regular season. You're not going to do that in the postseason.
I went into this year pretty pessimistic about the Red Sox. And full disclosure, I picked neither the Yankees nor the Red Sox to make the postseason because I didn't trust either one of their pitching staffs. I thought their pitching staffs were filled with too many question marks. Now, my Yankee prediction, which makes it look like I was just a homer, my mindset was, what are they going to get from Cortez, Severino, the Michael King, a lot of these other names that I thought, what are they really expecting from them? And as I've said, they have been question marks that they turned into exclamation points, and the Yankees are on pace to win every game. But the Red Sox, I also looked at their pitching staff and I said, do you know what? I just don't trust this pitching staff. I didn't think they were going to be a bad team. I thought they were going to be a low 80s win team, and mainly because I really did not trust their staff. And if you told me that they would get to this point after the 4th of July where their leader in saves would be Tanner Houck, who sits out a Toronto season because he doesn't want to get a shot, which just shows you the steroid era is over, because there was a period of time baseball players had no problem getting shots with whatever is in it. And that Rich Hill, Nathan Eovaldi, and Garrett Whitlock would all be injured, and that what's his name? He just got DFA'd. Hanzo Robles would be DFA'd. I would assume we were on pace to lose 100 games.
Yeah.
And yet here we are.
Here we are. I don't think they're going to win 100 games by any means. They're certainly not going to lose 100 games, but it's crazy to see how this pitching staff has evolved, because Pivetta was horrible to start the year. Started the year 0-5, and save for Tuesday night, he was like 8-1 in his last 9 starts. So he's really turned it around. And you have the younger guys. You have Tanner Houck still continuing to be fine in that closer role. John Schreiber has been great as a setup man when relied upon. And you just have this group of I don't want to say random people, because they're not random at all, but you have Josh Winkowski coming up to make spot starts, and here he is carving out a role for himself in the rotation. Yeah. So they have that next man up mentality, which is incredibly important, especially when you have Eovaldi and Whitlock go down. And now with Whitlock going back into the bullpen, which is the right move, I'm excited to see how this pitching staff continues to evolve, because you got Chris Sale pitching as we record this in Worcester. So he's got to slot back in there. Rich Hill eventually will come back, and he's been fine. Who is the odd man out? I don't know.
Yeah, the way Pivetta turned it around, he's their leader in innings pitched at this point. He's been kind of their stopper. The one that, there have been a bunch of times this year where he's come up big when you're like, oh boy, they could really use a win here. And he's pitched deep into ball games, given them quality innings. He's already thrown 100 innings this year. He's the closest thing they have to a workhorse. I got very nervous when, Eovaldi got off to a good start, and when he went on the injured list. I love Eovaldi. You and I, any Red Sox fan loves Eovaldi for everything he did in 2018, coming out of the bullpen, starting, I think he's still on the mound from Game 3 of the World Series. I don't think he's still up there chucking pitches. So obviously he's a beloved figure in Red Sox history, but he has had Tommy John surgery twice, and he's in the wrong side of 30. When you're someone who's over 30 years old and had multiple Tommy John surgeries and you get injured, you start thinking, well, I wonder if I saw him throw his final pitch. And you're right. The people, even someone like Cutter Crawford the other day, throwing a bunch of innings out of the bullpen, the shuttle from Worcester, and boy, if you thought it was hard adapting Cleveland Guardians, I'm still saying Pawtucket, after my whole life it being Pawtucket, I got to send them to Pawtucket. No. Worcester, Paul. Worcester, there, Sully. Matt Strom, held on for dear life in that game against Toronto. Sometimes they're pitching with, better than their talent, which when you see the injuries, sometimes that's how you keep a team like this together, especially when they're facing some tough injury times.
And we saw this in 2021 as well, when they had the big COVID outbreak toward the end of the season. You had everyone stepping up. You had pretty much an entire Woo Sox squad in some of those games. And it was Jonathan Araruz coming up big. It was the Cutter Crawfords. It was those Connor Siebels. It was those type of names that were coming up when they saw this as an opportunity, because once the COVID outbreak hit, they're like, well, as soon as these players clear, I'm going back down to Worcester. So they were seizing that opportunity. And I feel like that's kind of what we're seeing now with the pitchers and the younger generation of baseball players, that they have this opportunity, they're seizing it, and they're like, we don't know when we're going to get this kind of opportunity again. I want to give Alex Cora a reason not to send me down. Maybe keep Kike Hernandez on the IL a little longer. Maybe stretch Eovaldi out a little longer on the IL so you can have him sharper in the postseason. Give Alex Cora those reasons to think about, who do I have to send down when the time comes?
And you see some of these players, they know if they play well and they pitch well, they may get a chance to be on a postseason roster. And who knows? That could be the greatest memory of their career. And, knock on wood, that could be great memories and a ring that they could be shooting for. And if you want great memories and a ring, let me recommend to you BlueNile.com. Whether you're ready to pop the question or you're celebrating a milestone moment, find jewelry as unique as the one you love with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. Look at Blue Nile has simple online tools that lets you choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as the setting style. Blue Nile's bench jewelers will then handcraft the perfect engagement ring. Each ring is a one-of-a-kind. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And Locked On MLB listeners and Locked On Red Sox listeners, I'll make a deal with Locked On Red Sox listeners as well, can get $50 off of purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement rings, so use code Locked On. That's code Locked On. Plus, every order is insured, ships for free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. Now, we're doing a crossover here. Lauren Campbell from Locked On Red Sox. I'm your pal Sully from Locked On MLB. I'm not going to pretend to be impartial here. I'm a native New Englander. You're questioning my Red Sox fandom. Turn on HBO. There I am. You work with NESN, right? Or you've been involved with NESN.
Yeah.
I was on a documentary that appeared on NESN called Spaceman, A Baseball Odyssey, about Bill Lee, the former Red Sox great.
Yep.
And I was one of the talking heads in that particular movie. So check that out. Check that out. I'm actually, they made a feature film. The same people who made the documentary made a feature film with Josh Duhamel playing Bill Lee. And that film is also called Spaceman. It also features Ernie Hudson, a Ghostbuster. And in the movie, Bill Lee is sending letters out to all the, after he'd been cut by the Expos, has basically been blackballed by baseball. He sent letters out to all the National League teams saying, I'm a free agent, please sign me. And he's convinced his mailman is keeping all the letters from him, from the teams. And so he comes out and he picks a fight with the mailman, and he and the mailman wind up in the movie tackling each other and rolling around on the ground. And then when the scene ends, the mailman says, I'll see you tomorrow, implying that this happens often. And the person who played the mailman was your pal Sully. So in that movie, I got to wrestle Josh Duhamel in his tighty whities. So I have a bucket list. Handsome character actor Josh Duhamel, tighty whities, I wrestle him. There you go. That is I think that film's on Amazon Prime. So anyway, I'm just plugging myself, but it was a fun experience. I have to tell you that one of the producers of that movie, or at least one of the financiers of that movie, was former Red Sox pitcher Eric Gagne, who is from Quebec. He was part of the 2007 Red Sox, and he had won the Cy Young Award with the Dodgers in 2004, I believe it was, or 2003. And no, sorry, it's 2003. He won the Cy Young with the Dodgers. And when we were shooting that scene, he was there. And I told him, I said, hey, I'm a big Red Sox fan. You were on the '07 Red Sox. Thanks a lot. And he kind of nodded and he said, yeah, but I sucked on the '07 Red Sox. And he was a very self-effacing, friendly man when I met him. Seemed very happy to get a World Series ring for his troubles, but also kind of knew that he was kind of a mop-up man. But very nice guy, very, very funny man, and had a nice career. And got a ring. And if you want a ring, go to Blue. Oh, I already did that one. All right. Lauren from Locked On Red Sox. Sorry, I want to just plug that little thing there. I want your thoughts on something because I talked about this on a previous episode. The Red Sox are playing the Yankees starting Thursday. I want the Red Sox to win the series, of course. I want the Red Sox to win as many games as possible. But I don't see this as an American League East showdown because I've conceded that. The Yankees can play 500 ball the rest of the way and they'll win 100 games.
Yeah.
This Red Sox team ain't winning 100 games.
No.
So for Red Sox fans' sanity, they should really be focused. And I want your take on this because you're a Red Sox fan, and sometimes I question your sanity. Red Sox fans should not even look at Yankee scores. They should be focusing on the White Sox, the Guardians, there, I got it right, and the Minnesota Twins, and stay better than them because nobody in the West is going to have a winning record other than Houston. And so if you're just better than the runner-ups of the Central, then you're getting a wild card spot. And going into this year, nobody was picking this team to win the division. So earning a wild card spot is pretty much what a Red Sox fan was thinking and hoping that this team would do. So just be better than Cleveland and Chicago, and you're going to be playing at least 2 games in October. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I think too, obviously the goal is the AL East. I mean, the goal is the World Series, but you want that, you want to be the best in your division and in that American League East. And it's always a tough division. And while it's not out of reach that the Red Sox or any AL East team for that matter could take the Yankees for first place, there's a lot of work to do. The Yankees have to cool down a lot, and then the other teams have to heat up. I mean, the Red Sox went 20-6 in June and lost ground on the Yankees in the standings. So that's how good the Yankees are. And just to put that into perspective. But yeah, I do think the other AL teams, like you mentioned, the Twins, Guardians, and White Sox, I just think that I don't want to say they get overlooked, but when you are a Red Sox fan and you have a stacked division every single year, I feel like the focus is always on the Yankees, the Rays, and the Blue Jays. Maybe the Orioles in a couple years. They're getting there. Go O's. But there's plenty of other teams in the AL that the Red Sox do need to look out for, and you just name them right there. So yeah, if you can be better than them, then you are that wild card team, which was to be pretty much expected, especially with the expanded postseason. Mm-hmm. And I think after April and the beginning of May, Red Sox fans are like, you know what? If they get a wild card, it'll be a miracle. And now it's like World Series back on because they've been playing really strong baseball, much better baseball than we saw in the first 6-7 weeks of the season. So yeah, if you can be better the rest of the way against the AL Central teams, then yeah, you're going to be poised for at least 2 games in October. And we saw last year as Red Sox fans, anything can happen in October.
Well, I mean, take a look at the last couple of postseasons where I'm not going to count the COVID year because that was a 60-game sample size. There were more teams that were playoff teams than not playoff teams, which is a further indictment of how bad that year was for the Red Sox. And for some other teams. Stacy Gotsulias, our mutual friend and host of Locked On Yankees, pointed out that the Orioles currently have a better record than the Angels, and the Angels have 2 generational talents in their prime on the team, both having MVP caliber seasons, and the rest of the team is worse than the Orioles. So that's just that we could be Angel fans. So let's be grateful for that.
Oh yeah.
But you take a look like last year, going into the postseason last year, the American League had 1 100-win team. That was Tampa. The National League had 2 mega teams, the 107-win Giants and the 106-win Los Angeles Dodgers. So naturally, the World Series was Atlanta versus Houston. in 2019, the Dodgers were the best team in the National League and arguably the best team in baseball. I went to game one of the playoffs, or the division series between Los Angeles and Washington, and the Dodgers just spanked the Nationals. And I remember thinking, oh boy, I hope this Nats team gets one win. And of course, the Nationals went on to win the World Series. Yep. You remember the 2017 Cleveland Indians. They were the Indians that year who went on that wild winning streak and were getting ready to seal the deal for the World Series. They were one swing away from winning in 2016. They don't get past the division series. The point I'm making is, in terms of, we're so used to obsessing over the Yankees. This Red Sox team is not going to be better than the Yankees over 162 games. You just hope the Red Sox or some other team is better than them over a 5-game stretch. You know, it's just getting them to that point. And we've seen time and time again, it's very rare that you see the best team in the American League play the best team in the National League. I honestly think the last time it happened was 2013 with the Red Sox in St. Louis. I really and that must be the case because, you know, every other year I'm just going through my head. You know, 14, you had 2 wild card teams in it. 2015, the Mets had the 4th best record in the National League. 2016, the Rangers had a better record than Cleveland. Obviously, Cleveland had the best record. Although that 2017, you had 200-win teams, Houston versus Los Angeles. I think the Indians were like 1 or 2 games better than Houston, but they didn't have the trash can on their side. And then the Dodgers had a worse record than Milwaukee in 2018. Obviously, the Nats were a wild card team, and last year you had the Braves didn't win 90 games. Yeah, I did that from memory. But the fact of the matter is, you know, the Yankees could win 115 games or 116 games for that matter, like the Mariners did in 2001, and they didn't make the World Series that year. You just have to focus on that wild card. Just get it. Yes, we all want to see a Red Sox Yankees series. It'll be fun, blah, 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 blah. Just win as many games as possible and be better than those teams.
Just get to October and then take care of the rest after that.
I think baseball is in a kind of a bad state in one way, however, because here we are, you know, we're still technically in early July, and the American League is pretty much settled.
Yeah.
I mean, no one's going to catch the Yankees. No team in the West is going to catch Houston. You know, Toronto, Tampa, and Boston, it's going to be some order. Like 2 games are going to separate those 3 teams. And unless Cleveland or Chicago go on a rampage, that's your playoff.
Yep, there it is.
And you know the 2 teams are going to get the bye are going to be New York and Houston. I mean, so it's like we're going to have half a season where you're just basically, you know, it kind of reminds me of like when you figure out who the national champion game is in college football, like just around Thanksgiving, and they wind up playing like a January 13th. Yes. It's kind of like, oh yeah, I forgot these 2 teams.
Exactly. That's the perfect analogy right there.
Yeah. And you know, the fact that the Angels and the White Sox have losing records at this point, you know, it's awful. But you know what? Look things are lining up for those American League teams, and it's kind of like you look at it, it's like the easiest bet you can make in the world is who's going to make the playoffs in the American League. And if you're going to make any bets, go to betonline.net. It's your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. You can find all the latest sports development, league reviews, and news, including this year's Major League Baseball season. Also, check out MMA, boxing, and, of course, golf. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores, and remains the best spot for your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline is where that game starts. All right, Lauren Campbell, Locked On Red Sox. I am going to. There's a lovely Catholic church in Pasadena, and I stop by there every day, and I light a candle to say, please don't trade Xander Bogaerts. Sign him. You're the Red Sox. You're printing money. You have they're sitting on a Scrooge McDuck pile of money. Sign Xander Bogaerts. I take a look at this team. Obviously, if they could get an innings-eating starter or another reliever, every team could use an innings-eating starter and another reliever just for depth. All right, and so you would have like the Frankie Montazes or the Luis Castillo from the Reds. Maybe Madison Bumgarner would be tradable or something like that. Okay. Other than obviously every team needs pitching depth. What position do you want to see the Red Sox upgrade? Because we got about less than a month before the trade deadline. So what position do you think they should be looking at to upgrade, or do you cross your fingers and hope that the Kiki Hernandez or Franchi Corderos of the world can fill in?
I would love to see the Red Sox upgrade at first base, and I want to love Bobby Delbeck. I do. I made my bold prediction for the year was that he was going to lead the Red Sox in home runs. I'm a bozo for making that prediction, but he just hasn't panned out this year. And I feel like last year when the Red Sox brought in Kyle Schwarber, that kind of lit a fire under Bobby Delbeck. Maybe he's just a second half player. We'll find out soon enough. But when he had that kind of competition, he was like, oh, my spot's on the line. I need to do something. And now with Tristan Casas, though knocking on the door of MLB, he is hurt. Probably not going to come back until after the All-Star break with Worcester. Worcester's being incredibly cautious with him, as they should. An ankle sprain, a lot more serious than they thought it was going to be originally. But you take your time with him. I think he is the future at first base. But I see so many people suggesting send Delbeck to Worcester, DFA Delbeck. Okay, are you ready to give full-time first base responsibilities to Franchi Cordero?
No.
Maybe throw in Christian Arroyo, who nearly tore his groin right off the bone in his debut at first base last year. So I would like to see whether it's a platoon with Delbeck, whether it's a platoon with Cordero, but some sort of upgrade there, because Delbeck is just becoming a liability, and both at the plate as well. I don't know what it is with him. I mean, you could say that for any member of the Red Sox, save for probably Devers and Bogarts. But first base, I think, when we're leaving out pitching, when we're completely leaving that out, I want to see first base, because I wish Delbeck panned out a lot better. He's still young, yes, but I think there's a big enough sample size there to know that we will need more than that. The Red Sox will need more than that going into the postseason, unless all of a sudden that fire is back like it was in the second half of 2021.
I mean, there's probably going to be, like, Bell is probably going to be available from Washington, and Trey Mancini is probably going to be available from the Orioles. I think a trade, I think it will be a buyer's market for first baseman, because you're going to see so many teams. As we mentioned, there's so many teams that are already out of it, and it's not too much better in the National League. The National League's going to have a little bit more competition going there, especially, excuse me as I scratch my nose, especially because a couple of teams that people have been sleeping on are suddenly waking up, like the Phillies, and look out, the Marlins are on a rampage. The Marlins may be in a position where they can't trade away their veterans, because they may be climbing their way back into a postseason position, or at least contending for one. I mean, I'm a big fan of Trey Mancini as being a potential second half player. And also, I like it when you have a player who is just on a stagnant team, suddenly finding themselves playing meaningful games. You've seen time in and time out that would perk up a team and perk up a player's production. I'm a huge fan of Bell in Washington. I just think that he would cost too much, especially when you consider you could just put together cobble together a playoff situation with a platoon. I keep looking back to what Atlanta did last year when they lost their entire outfield, and they wound up acquiring Soler, Peterson, and Rosario, and all of them became postseason heroes. And the lesson we learned from them making those deals, which I've said this before, I guarantee you nobody was doing a deadline day recap, trade deadline recap. I guarantee you that week no one was saying the Braves won the trade deadline because they picked up Jock Peterson, Jorge Soler, and Rosario. But it turns out they picked up the NLCS MVP, which was Rosario, and the World Series MVP, who was Soler. Sometimes you just need to acquire a major leaguer.
Yeah.
And look what Steve Pearce did.
Exactly.
Or when you and I talked about that 13 team, they just put major leaguers at every position, and some of them happen to flourish and wake up and say, "Hey, this is fun." And so I don't think they need to make a blockbuster deal. I think they need to just make sure there's a competent player at every position, and I think they'll wind up. I think they're going to win 90, 91 games. I think that's what they're going to wind up doing.
That's what I said originally, like before the season started. I said they're probably between 90 and 93 wins, and I still feel pretty good about that. But when you're in the AL East and maybe you don't have a competent first baseman, that's going to cause you problems. And it makes you wonder if I know Chaim Bloom has hinted at looking at relievers, which they desperately need.
Yes.
But when you have the position at first base kind of up in the air, and Tristan Cass is certainly not going to be ready this year. And maybe that kind of hinders him a little bit coming up to MLB, but I don't know how much longer Red Sox fans can be patient with Delbeck, and I don't know how much longer the Red Sox can be too. When you were 2 wins away from the World Series last season, when you weren't even supposed to make the playoffs, and now you're close again, you're finally starting to heat up. You don't want your first baseman, this big hulky first baseman, to be the reason that you lose a game potentially, or do you want him in a big spot with the bases loaded and you just need 2 runs and there's 2 outs? Do you want him in that position? Probably not. So you need someone trusty, you need someone competent, and you need someone who's just kind of going to take over that position, keep it warm until Cassis is here.
Do you think I'm just spitballing right now because look, we know Verdugo is going to be Verdugo is in left field. Okay, I like what Duran is doing, except the whole not getting a COVID shot. What are we going to do if it's Red Sox Blue Jays in a wild card series? What are we not going to have players show up? Come on.
Duran got vaccinated.
Thank God.
He got vaccinated. I don't know the timeline. It must have been while they were in Toronto, obviously, because he didn't go. But yeah, he said the deciding factor was watching his team on TV and not being able to contribute. And I guess that's what happens when you're a hot leadoff hitter and all of a sudden you can't go. So
yeah, literally take one for the team. But do you think that maybe I'm just spitballing here for a little bit. If maybe they have JBJ, who obviously is there for his glove, not for his bat, Duran, and if you have Kiki Hernandez come back, could you slide him in at first? I mean, he's played the infield, and it'd probably be a heck of a lot easier to find a decent outfielder available than a difference-making first baseman, and maybe try to get a bit of outfield depth and say, Kiki, you played second, he's played all over the infield, all over the outfield. I love when even though he's not played particularly well when he's been, healthy this year, he did, they did start winning when he was healthy. I think he sparks the team in a very real way. I'm spitballing here. I'm doing anything to not have JD Martinez and Xander Bogaerts traded in midseason.
And also keep JD Martinez out of the outfield.
Yes.
He's listen, I love JD Martinez, but that is a big boy running into full force on a field and then at the wall in the field. And then he's out for a couple games because he hurt his back, because that's 200 plus pounds running full force into that wall. But I just think I'm so cautious about putting players at first base who aren't familiar with it because of Christian Arroyo, but it worked with Kyle Schwarber. So why couldn't it work with Kike Hernandez? And I like the idea of outfield depth. You can never have too much depth, right? But I feel like there's like a cluster in the outfield because you have Rob Refschneider, who is also giving Alex Cora questions like, oh, I don't know if I should send him down. Duran, I don't think he's going anywhere. Cora said this is our leadoff hitter, which was Hernandez's spot. So now it's like, okay, is he slowly getting like pushed out of the lineup or to be a platoon player? But I guess you can't give a real answer until you try it, right? I guess he is familiar, obviously, with the infield, and he just happened to be a stud in the outfield last year when they had to throw him out there. So I guess you don't know until you try. So maybe just do a little trial run. Hopefully it goes better than Christian Arroyo and there's no further injury. I do worry because he does have that hip ailment right now, and I don't want it to – there's a lot of movement at first base. There's a lot of footwork, but you can say the same about any position in the infield.
Right.
So try it, sure. Why not? You have to try something, right? If you want to do something at first base. but I wouldn't rely on it.
All right. Well, I think what they're going to wind up doing, I mean, this would be what I would do, and believe me, no one's asking me, but I would use that Braves mentality and just sort of go on and see, kick the tires with several teams that are out of it and say, hey, who's your major leaguer at first base, even if it's not a superstar? Because you're right. There's a tendency to want to think that, well, anybody can play first base. And I keep thinking of that great scene in Moneyball. It's really easy. And he said, tell him, Wash, it's incredibly hard. And to make someone learn a new position in mid-season is just ridiculous. So I would like to see. And do you know what? I also think you see whenever they bring someone aboard, it does spark the team. A new person showed up. People raise their game a little bit, and that player, whoever it is stuck on a team that stinks. He's already making plans for early October because obviously not playing baseball then, and to look up and say, "Oh, I'm actually playing have a shot at a playoff team." That you get a little burst of energy. Again, we've seen that. Obviously, Pierce is the biggest example in Red Sox history. I remember, we brought those examples up from last year's trade deadline. Marco Scutaro was floundering with the Colorado Rockies in 2012. And when the Giants acquired him in midseason, he became the NLCS MVP and drove in the World Series winning run against Detroit and became the emotional leader of the team. The guy wasn't even on the team in mid-July.
Right.
So sometimes that sort of, by the way, do you know who also was also late season acquisitions in Red Sox history? Dave Henderson with the 86 Red Sox and Dave Roberts with the 2004 Red Sox.
Yep.
Sometimes those late year pickups can be a big factor.
Even last season, even though Jose Iglesias didn't play in the postseason, he was still in the dugout, just hyping up the team, and the players couldn't say enough about the energy he brought. And it was like he was going on that field every day, and he was just there, just kind of being the hype man. And that's when you have that energy, you're feeding off, because he probably would have given his left arm to play in last year's postseason, and maybe they would have won an extra game or two. But when you just have that spark and that little bit of energy, it goes a long way.
And Schwarber, what Schwarber did for the team. We have to remember he wasn't on the team the whole year because he was one of the, when I think about their playoff run last year, he's one of the first faces that pops in my head. Yep. And you have to remember, he was picked up in mid-July. Yeah,
the trade, I think it came
I think it was trade deadline. Yeah, you're right. I couldn't completely remember. But yeah, so, look at this Red Sox team is outperforming what I thought. As I said, I thought they were a low 80 win team. I thought the Yankees were an 85 win team because, as I said, I didn't trust their pitching staff. That Yankee team has proven me wrong big time.
Yeah, I think they've proven us all wrong.
Oh, yeah, called completely. All of us talking about firing Cashman, firing Boone, all this, all of a sudden, that is a all-you-can-eat omelet buffet on my face. But doesn't guarantee a World Series, though.
Right.
But this Red Sox team, again, they're playing better than the sum of their parts, I think. And they're getting contributions better than the sum of their parts. And so I would not surprise me if I saw this team win 90 games. And that's enough to, there you go. At least they'd get to play in that newfangled wild card series. And,
that would be fun.
And roll them bones.
Roll them bones, baby.
Roll them bones. Well, look at you know what? I almost don't want to say who do you want to pick up because I really think it will be the whole the Soler Rosario situation. Let's wake someone who's dormant up.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah,
it's worked in the past, and I think the Red Sox are set up for a lot of future success, probably starting next year. But let's give these Worcester kids a taste of what they could be in store for them for years to come. Let's not just start pumping the brakes here and don't take the foot off the gas just because you're kind of content with what's happening. You're playing beyond expectations. Go get that missing piece. Go get another ring. I would like another World Series ring.
I know. Think about the poor kid who's only 4 years old. and has never seen a Red Sox team win in their lifetime.
Ugh, poor baby.
Poor baby. Haven't they suffered enough?
Think of the children.
I went from appearing on HBO, basically saying, I just want to see it happen once in my lifetime, to now me saying, oh, let's rank them. Oh, I think that's the fourth best one. And then, So, wait, I know a gentleman never asked the lady their age, but how old were you in 04?
15.
So you remember it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. I was in my 30s, and my wife was pregnant with twins. But
my co-host was 4. When he told me that, I was like, I've already had, I'm a whole adult at that point. What do you mean you're 4?
Yeah. I was about to become a father. I just was like, this is something I just will never see in my lifetime. We should expect it every 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, right? Exactly. And now that the Celtics have come so close to Banner 18, the Bruins are always in the playoffs. The Patriots, they will get back to the playoffs eventually. We just want postseason wins, and we want championships. I'm with Robert Kraft here. I don't care about making the playoffs. I want wins in the playoffs.
Boy, the Boston sports fan has really evolved into something I do not recognize. Especially, it's funny because I grew up there when the Celtics were the only team that could win. When I was growing up there, it was the Bird era, and the Red Sox obviously lost the '86 World Series when it was so close. The Patriots were irrelevant, save for that one year where they got clobbered by the Bears, and the Bruins were okay. They made the finals a couple of times, but they never were. They weren't that sort of perennial cup contender,
right?
And it was like, okay, there was a sense of foreboding disaster always looming.
Yeah.
And then now it's been a couple of years since there's been a Boston championship. Think about it. There was if you count those are the 4 teams. I'm sure there are other teams who can vote. If you count the 4 teams of the Red Sox, the Bruins, the Patriots, and the Celtics, boom, those 4 teams, between Larry Bird and company winning the '86 championship and the Patriots winning the Super Bowl in 2002, there was none. 0. And lots of false hope. Mo Vaughn and Nomar and Drew Bledsoe and Bork and Antoine Walker and Rick Pitino, all these people who were supposed to be bringing in Dan Duquette, all these people were brought in to supposedly bring forward the championships that didn't come. And then now it's like, oh man, it's been what since the Red Sox in 2018? Ooh boy, that's starting to get actually no, it's been the Patriots over the LA Rams in 2019. So, oh boy, it's been 3 whole years.
And the Boston Pride, the women's hockey team here in Boston, just won their 3rd Isabel Cup championship and their 2nd in a row. They're the only team to have multiple championships. They won that last year. So it's probably been about 10 months total, but that's still a really long time.
I know. Come on. It's been months. You've had to wait months.
It's been 84 years.
There you go. All right. Well, hey, Lauren Campbell, we're going to do this again. Red Sox fans, don't get obsessed with the Yankees this year. They've won the division. Just focus on punching the card to the postseason, which going into this year is what we all thought was the best case scenario for this team, was to be one of the wild card teams. So, just focus on winning series and staying ahead of Cleveland, Chicago, and Minnesota. And lo and behold, we will see postseason ball, at least for a few days this October. Hey, my dear friend Lauren Campbell, where can people follow you?
You can find me Twitter at Lauren, 3 Laws, Lauren with 4 R's, and the Locked On Red Sox Twitter account at LO_Red Sox.
And you can follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Thanks so much for making Locked On MLB your first listen every day. Your second listen, make that Locked On Red Sox. Your third listen, make that Locked On MLB Prospects. Host Lindsey Crosby, friend of this podcast, is a prospect encyclopedia. He's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow, many of whom are playing in Worcester. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. Trying to be calm and not unreasonable, which is not the way Boston fans usually are. With Lauren Campbell of Locked On Red Sox, this has been a Locked On Red Sox, Locked On MLB crossover for the 7th day of July, 2022. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.